Hello everyone, welcome to this channel. I am Basanta Prabhu. In this video, we are going to learn about one of the important topic in machine learning, classification. Let's see what are the topics to be covered in this video. The first one is what is classification. Then the objectives of classifications, needs of classification, and the important topics in classification, methods used in classification, types of classification, and then advantages of classification, finally the limitations of classification. Let's see, what is classification? A classification is a way of categorizing analytics variable data, then displaying the data in different ways when we generate reports. It is a method in which we can classify data based on some given topics or something like based on some relevant similarities between the data, and then we can generate a report. Classification is the problem of identifying to which of a set of category a new observation belongs on the basis of training set of data containing observation whose category membership is known. So that's it. Like, classification is just simply classifying the data to get more clear view of what it is. The objectives of classification. The first objective is to condense the mass of data in such a manner that similarities and dissimilarities can be readily apprehended. So that's what it is like. Similar variables will be collected under one group, and then each similarities will be classified, and then it will be made into a different classifications to facilitate comparison. With this classification, we can make comparison between data between different variables to point out the most significant feature of the data at a glance. So by this classification, we can see which variable or which classification is most significant among the given data. So it is very useful in that way to focus the important informations collected. It will be helpful to look deeply into what we have collected, because when we are having a data in a simple way, it will have various and huge data set. With that, if we are classifying, it means we will have a individual classifications with some properties for it, so that it will be more easy to look into it. To enable a statistical treatment of the material collected. This is one of the statistical treatment that is used to work with data. Next, the needs of classification. The main purpose of classification is to break a subject into smaller. This is what break a subject into smaller is. When we have a huge data, we won't get a clear idea about what it is. But when we have a points means, it will be more clear for us to understand it. In the similar way, when data is in a raw form, it is very difficult to define or describe what it is. When we are classifying it means, we'll get a more clear view, clear definition of what it is, more manageable. So by doing classification, the data will be manageable because It is one form of uh, data, like we are working with the data, and then the data is manipulating from one form to another form, so it is more manageable, more specific parts. So when we are classifying, we won't have a huge data. It will be classified as different forms. So we will have individuals in different parts. So it will be specific. Smaller subcategories help us make sense of the world, and the way in which the subcategories are created also help us make sense of the world. A classification is essay is organized by its subcategories. Classification is like similar to a essay. When we are seeing a essay, we'll have different parts like introduction and then subtopics and then a conclusion. When if we are having a just a random set of data with single paragraph containing some 1,000 or 2,000 words, means it won't look good actually. It won't be understandable. When we are making it into a points and sub paragraph, it will make sense. That is similar to the what we are doing in here, classifications. Next, important definitions in classification. When we are doing classifications, we have to see some basic definitions, basic things what we will do with classifications. First one is class limits. The class limits are the largest and highest values that can be included in the class. So class limit is each classification will have a specific range of value from lowest to highest value. For example, take a class 20 to 40. The highest value of the class is 20 and the highest value is 40. So here whatever values having uh, between 20 and 40 will be taken in a single class. So that is classified into a single group. Next one is class interval. The difference between the upper and the lower limit of the class is known as class interval of the class. It is based on class limit. If we will have a limit, and then when we are seeing the difference between the upper and lower limits of the class, we will come out with a class interval. For example, in this class 100 to 200, so the class interval is 200 minus 100, that is 100. So the interval is the difference between the upper and the lower limits, or the higher and the lower values. Next one, class frequency. The number of observations corresponding to a particular class is known as the frequency of the class, or the class frequency. So how many observations we are getting in a particular class, that will give us a class frequency. Next, in classification, what are the methods we are using? It is so simple actually. Exclusive method. When the class intervals are so fixed that the upper limit of one class is the lower limit of the next class, it is known as exclusive method of classification. Here 1 to 10. So and the next interval is 10 to 20. And the next interval is 20 to 30. This is called as exclusive method. Inclusive method. In this, in the inclusive method, the upper limit of the class interval is included in the class itself. So 10 to 1 to 10. So 1 to 10, all the variables will be in the same class. And then we'll see to 11 to 20. So there won't be any common variables, like it won't be shared. Types of classification. We have four basic type of classification. First one is geographical classification, and the next one is chronological classification, and the third one is qualitative classification, and the fourth one is quantitative classification. Now we can see more detailed about geographical classification. In this type of classification, the data are classified on the basis of area or places and as such this type of classification is also known as aerial or spatial classification. So it is similar to classifying based on areas. Like if we have a map, means we can divide different states and then different places with different rainfalls, like high rainfall level, and then based on the maps. The area may be in terms of countries, states, districts, zones, according as the data are distributed. As I have said, it's like dividing a country or state or a district or different zones. For countries, states, districts or zone, according to the data is distributed. So based on this, everything is distributed. Distributed is like it is classified on that basis. For the purpose of ready reference and ranking, the different classes form under the classification should be arranged in order of their alphabets or the size of the frequency respectively. So when we are the purpose of ready reference and ranking is known, we have to arrange it orderly, like based on the alphabets or based on the size of frequency between these classifications. Here we can see a pictorial representation of geographical classification method. It's a Indian map. We have different parts here. It's like it's fully green, and then here it's orange and then red. Based on the temperature levels, this mapping have been done. This is a climate classification actually. These climate and temperature classifications will come under geographical things when we are doing with like this for a country or for a specified place. So like this we can make it more clear, giving a pictorial representation of a geographical classification method. Next method is chronological classification. This type of classification, their data collected or classified on the basis of time of their occurrence. So in this classification, what we will do is, if we are having a data, we will classify the data based on the time, like the timing, like first the data or the happenings happened from this time to this time, and then like from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. that will be classified in one thing, like that. As such, the series obtained under this classification is purely known as time series. This is more based on time, so it can be also called as time series. It is fully based on time series. This type of classification is suitable for data which take place in course of time. Example, population, production, sales and results. So as I have said, it is purely based on time. If population means, we can compare the population of the city on the consecutive years, like 2019, 20, 21 and 22, like that. Next, the different classes obtained under this classification are arranged in order of the time, which may begin either with the earliest or the latest period. As I have said, it will be arranged in order from the origin period of time or the latest. Like if it is starting from 2016 to 20, means we can have the 2016 first, followed by till 2020, or else we can start with 2020 and then we can come up to 2016. This is a population of India from 1941 to 1991. So it is purely based on time. This is the time they have mentioned. So we have found the population values. In 1941, the population is 31 crore. In 51 it is 36, and 61 43, and then 71 40, 54, and then in 81 63. So like this we can classify the data, because first time series is 1941. 1941 we have 31.87 crore. That will come under one classification. Similarly, all others will be followed. Next type of classification is qualitative classification. Under this type of classification, the data obtained are classified on the basis of certain descriptive characters or qualitative aspects of a phenomenon. Example, sex, beauty, literacy, honesty, intelligence, religion, eyesight, and etc. So what we will do in qualitative classification is we will classify the data based on some characters, or like sex means male and female, beauty means fair, or like white, black, brown, like that. And then literacy, based on level of literacy, and then honesty, whether honest or not, like that. Like some examples have been given. As such, this sort of classification is also known as descriptive classification, because it is purely based on some descriptive characters. It is nothing other than that. If we can classify based on like people's mindset, whether they are doing good things or bad thing, like these are some qualitative things. And in qualitative we have two types. First one is discrete and the next one is continuous. In discrete, the data we will have is finite. It is countable number of data. And continuous. In continuous, we will have infinite number of data to be worked with. So here we have some graphical representation of what is qualitative data classification. Here we have patient's baseline characteristics. So it is some characteristics what they have, some group of people. We have 9 people here, and then we are classifying using this model. First, what we are taking as class is sick peoples. Out of 9, here 3 peoples are sick, so they are classified as a group. And then another group is, obviously, if first group is sick means another second one is healthy. So here we have 6 healthy peoples. So they have classified based on their descriptive characters. First guys are sick, they are separated in a class, and then some guys are healthy, they are separated in another class. This is qualitative classification. Next and final classification is quantitative classification. Under this type of classification, the collected data are classified on the basis of certain variables. Example, mark, incomes, expenditure, profit, loss, height and weight, age, price, population, etc. Here it is purely based on qualitative numbers. So what we will do is we will classify based on the mark. If mark means what percentage of like 50% below, they will be classified, and then like that. Income also based on their income level. It is purely number based, nothing other than numbers. Everything is purely based on numbers. We have some more examples like expenditure, profit, and then height, weight of peoples, and then age, like price of something like what we buy, like that. And then next, here we have 3 types in quantitative classification. First one is nominal. Nominal is variables with no inherent order or ranking sequence. Here there won't be any rankings. Here we will have, for example, if it is a race, means who comes first and then second or third, like that. Um, it's a ranking sequence. Next, normal is without ranking, like it will be based on the continuous working of it. And the next one is ordinal. It is a variables with an ordered series. We will have some ordered series, like we can take an example of a blood group. So B positive, A positive, like that. And then a third classification is binary. It is variables with only two options. In this, we won't have many options. We will only have yes or no, like that. If it is a exam, means we can take whether we got passed or failed. Here we have a example of it. Variable is an age and age categories. First, 0 to 20 people have 10 people have a 10 people 0 to 20 people have a age of 10, and then 20 to another 20 people are in the age of 20. So here it is like it is a nominal thing. We don't have any ranking sequence. Just simply we are classify the data based on this uh, quantitative classification method. And then finally, we have advantages of classification. Classification facilitates the identification of organisms. So, with classifications, we can identify what organism it is. Like, we can separate the groups. It helps to establish the relationship among various groups of organisms. So, by using classification model, we can separate different groups. We can classify them. So, after classifying all different datas, we will have different classified things. With that, we can establish a relationship among them. So, it is very useful to find the relationship among the classes. So, whether it is related or not, it helps to study the phylology and evolutionary history of organisms. So, with this data, we can see the evolutionary history, whether a data set is based on some history, like how they have classified it is purely based on some history values, or it is newly created or something like that. All these things can be found using classification. So these are some of the major advantages in classification. And another advantage of classification is, by using this model we can make the data more clear, because rather than having a raw data set, when we have it as classified data, it will be more easier for us to process with it, and that will surely give a clear way to find a output or predicted outcome from the given data set. So when we are making a classification, it will be more useful for us to produce a best model with it. That model can be used for further processing of future data.